scene of a particularly nasty double murder on the West Ferry Road. The bodies of a shopkeeper called Furlow and his wife were discovered early one morning by their assistant, a girl named Rosie, who, confronted by a scene straight out of a penny dreadful, did the sensible thing and screamed her head off. By chance, I was on my beat, and hearing her cries was the first constable on the scene. There were no signs of a break-in. In fact, there was little sign of anything untoward, except, of course, for the two bodies in the flat above the shop, dressed in their nightclothes and with their throats cut. Other officers soon arrived and the place was cordoned off. A search was conducted and a cash box found, open and empty, under the Furlow's bed. The press got hold of the story, whipped the locals into a frenzy, and soon CID took over the case. After some persuasion, they let me stay on the case. I convinced them I could be useful. I was, after all, the first copper on the scene, and I knew the territory. We appealed for eyewitnesses, and several came forward. They spoke of two shifty-looking men seen leaving the premises that morning. A couple even identified the two as brothers, Alfred and Albert Stratford, toughs with a reputation for violence considered excessive even for that part of town. We hauled them in for questioning, and of course they denied everything. To listen to them, you'd have thought they'd been in church at the time of the murders. Then witnesses started backtracking. Stories changed. It was dark. They couldn't be certain, weren't even sure if it was the same day. And suddenly we had nothing, and the Stratford brothers were going to walk. In a last throw of the dice, the CID officers returned to the crime scene in the vain hope of turning up some evidence that might have been missed. I was left at the station and to my own devices. On a whim, I went down to the evidence locker. With the case slipping away, my stint in CID seemed almost over, and I wanted to take one last look at what we had, for old time's sake. I examined the meagre contents, the blood-soaked nightclothes, a cracked pocket watch, the empty cash box. It was then that I noticed the reddish smudge hidden on the inside lip of the cash box lid. In all the commotion, it must have been missed when the box was originally discovered. Instantly I knew what it was, and more importantly, what it might mean. I vaulted back up the stairs, my hands shaking as I held out the box and showed it to the senior officer. Soon, Scotland Yard's nascent fingerprinting bureau had been summoned. They managed to lift a print, which turned out to be an exact match for Alfred Stratford's thumb. We'd caught him red-handed. I applied for a transfer to CID and was accepted. As for the Stratford brothers, they were both hanged. I spent the next 7 years in CID, dealing with crimes that would put most men off their dinners. It gets tiring after a while, and in late 1912 I transferred to Special Branch, whose primary role at the time was to keep an eye on Fenians and their sympathisers in the capital. Not many people remember that the Special Branch started life as the Special Irish Branch. The name may have changed, but the mission hadn't. The war came in the summer of 14. I wasn't one of those who welcomed its arrival like so many turkeys cheering for Christmas. Maybe because I'd already seen enough death to know it was often gruesome, generally pointless, and rarely honourable. I certainly didn't get caught up in the fever that saw countless young men head gleefully to the recruiting office in those early days, thinking it would all be over by the new year. So many people thought it would be a short affair, that we'd go over there, give the Kaiser a thrashing, and that would be that, as though dispatching the industrialised might of the Imperial German army would be no more arduous than beating the spear-chuckers we liked to fight in our colonial campaigns. In the end, though, I did volunteer. Not for love of king and country, which is considered noble, but for the love of a woman, which is something altogether more complicated. I first saw Sarah on the Mile End omnibus one morning in the autumn of 1913. People talk of love at first sight, of violins and fireworks. For me, the experience was more akin to a mild heart attack. She was beautiful, in the way one always imagines an English girl should be, and far too pretty to be on an omnibus on the Whitechapel Road, or within a 5-mile radius of the place for that matter.